Indeed. So let's see. All right, people are hopping in. 4 people so far. 5, 6.
Hello, folks. Thanks for hopping on. We're just going to give it 20, 30 seconds as folks are joining here. So just hang tight, please. Ms. Creed, just let me know when we're at critical mass. I can't see.
We'll do. We have 10 members so far, 10 folks so far. So let's give it another 20 seconds. All right, I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us at your lunch hour here for Solar United Neighbors. My name is Benjamin Hoyne. I am the Virginia Program Associate with Solar United Neighbors. Thrilled to have you here for our solar and electric vehicle charger co-op information session. I'm joined by my 2 colleagues at Solar United Neighbors, Sukrit Mishra and Aaron Such. Sukrit handles our solar technical expertise and does a lot of the back end work. He's based out of Washington, D.C., helps us in D.C. and Maryland as well. And then Aaron Such is a name and face that might be familiar to some of you. He is the longtime Virginia Program Director and also has recently taken on the role of the East Coast, Atlantic, Southeast Regional Director as well. So happy to have Sukrit and Aaron here in the background offering support. And then we're thrilled to be joined by Janice Moore. She's coming to us from the Middle Peninsula, I believe, or somewhere around there.
That's right.
Former co-op member, past participant of a Solar United Neighbors solar co-op. So Janice, why don't you take it away and let folks know about your experience with a solar co-op?
Sure. Thanks for this opportunity. I was interested in going solar because of climate change and grandchildren and the next generation and all that sort of thing. And so I reached out to Solar United Neighbors, got hooked up with Aaron and the Middlesex Co-op, which Aaron was coaching along and helping out to find members and get everybody signed up. I quickly got super interested in some of the details of things, which the kind of thing I do, and got part of the committee that actually studied the RFP that we put out for solar installers, and then helped evaluate the responses and got together with a small group that Aaron put together, and we ended up in the office of a contractor up the road a little bit, and used his conference room, and it was full of whiteboards, and Aaron and I together sketched out the matrix of things we had asked the installers to respond to, and Aaron was really good at evaluating everybody's response and encapsulating it into brief little summaries, but we also had all the details. He printed everything out for us so we could read it. And we had a lively discussion. Wouldn't you say it was lively, Aaron? Everybody participated a lot, and we ended up drawing things on Xing out installers because they didn't have XYZ thing that the group thought was really essential, and picked Shaco Solar Company, which is run by Bernie Stanley, and he did the installs on everybody in Middlesex County, including me. And so I've had my panels ever since, put the little inverter in with the Wi-Fi connection on my phone. I can tell you right now I'm generating about 6.4 kilowatts, and it's been great. I get lots and lots of questions. We had another meeting here, a party celebration kind of thing for everybody that was in the co-op, and that was a great day as well. And I've had lots of inquiries. I had a sign in my yard for a long time. And then we had another co-op like Generation 2, and it was very successful, I think. Some neighbors have put up solar arrays on their roofs. Lots of people asked lots of questions. And I think it's been pretty successful in this area. So I highly encourage, if you're thinking about doing anything with solar panels, no matter what it is, if you've already got panels and you want to go batteries or anything that you want to do, I would highly recommend getting hooked up with Solar United Neighbors. They've been a great resource for any kind of question or any sort of advice.
Great. Well, thanks, Janice. Appreciate that ringing endorsement. And if you're listening to Janice and you didn't quite understand a lot of stuff here, we'll be going over just about everything she mentioned and more here over the next hour, and we'll work towards making you a solar expert, and hopefully get you on the path to installing your own solar array. So again, with that, I'll start moving forward. My name is, as I mentioned, Benjamin Hoyne, and welcome to the Solar and EV Charger Co-op. A couple quick little housekeeping items. Certainly want to make sure everyone has their speakers on or their microphone on mute. Also, we'll be using the chat function a lot. So if there are questions, you're welcome to answer or ask those at any point. I can't actually see the chat, but Sukrit and Aaron will be monitoring the chat and probably answering as we go along. And additionally, I'll stop at the end of various sections and take a moment to ask for questions. And finally, did want to let you all know that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll share a link not only to all of you, but to anyone that's not here today that did RSVP. So a little bit about Solar United Neighbors. We are a vendor neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. Really, we are unaffiliated with any company or any solar product. That we really rely entirely upon community engagement and involvement. As I mentioned, national now, we have programs in 12 states. We help people nationwide, actually, through our help desk services, which Sukrit and some of his colleagues monitor. And we can ask questions at any time to our help desk. And really, we bring people together to address barriers to information, red tape, technology, policy, and so much more. We really represent solar owners and solar consumers, as well as prospective solar owners and consumers. We started way back in 2007. I guess that's 15 years ago. You can see our founder, Anya Schoolman, in the photo there. Back in 2007, Anya's son, Walter, who is on the left in that photo, and his friend Diego, who's on the right, saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth. They came home and said, "Mom, we have to go solar." Well, Anya looked into it and quickly found out that going solar was not so easy. So with her son's help and Diego's help, they actually went door to door, and they enlisted the help of about 50 of their neighbors to help untangle the complicated process. Again, kind of a precursor of what we do here at Solar United Neighbors. What they found at that time was there was only 2 companies working in Washington, D.C. Installing solar panels. They heard completely different things about basics, like how do you actually install solar on a roof? How much should it cost? What type of equipment to use? Taxes, regulations, rules, permitting, so much more. There was just lots of questions and lots of confusion. So the group worked through all these things. It took them 2 years to go through this process, but eventually 45 homes went solar. After that, started getting media attention and whatnot. And so people from all over the country called Anya and wanted to organize similar solar co-ops. And so just organically, Solar United Neighbors was founded. And now here in 2022, as I mentioned, we have members in all 50 states. We have run well over 300 solar co-ops, just like we're doing in Arlington and Northern Virginia here this spring. We've got almost 50 staff spread across 4 time zones, again, with a focused, dedicated staff in 12 states. So our impact, we have helped over 6,000 families go solar. We've helped install 54 megawatts, or helped families put 54 megawatts of solar on their roofs and on their property. And just to give you an idea, that's the equivalent of a utility scale size solar power plants that we have helped collectively install across the country. In Virginia, specifically, we've helped 1,100 families, over 1,100 families go solar and installed over 8 megawatts. We've also worked on policies at the General Assembly, the State Corporation Commission, local municipalities, various commissions, all with the goal of expanding solar rights and solar access and increasing solar deployment. Additionally, we're working towards an equitable energy system. We know that rooftop solar lets communities invest locally, creates good local jobs, and brings control of the energy system within our reach. And we're working towards a new energy system that everyone can participate in, one that's fair and equitable. You can see our theory of change, our organizational vision. Again, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. First and foremost, we help folks go solar. And that's kind of one of the things we're doing here with our co-ops, help new and existing folks go solar. As I mentioned before, we are installer neutral, technology neutral. Our goal is to help you go solar. We also joined together. We helped, as Janice mentioned, at the end of a co-op, we had a great happy hour, and we will do that with this co-op as well. So we help solar owners connect with fellow solar owners, whether that's through happy hour. We also have a Facebook page specifically for Virginia. So we have a Solar United Neighbors Facebook page, and we have an email listserv. And I'll ask folks to drop that in the chat. So you're welcome to join either of those groups if you're interested. And then after people join together, that really helps us learn what some of the challenges and barriers are. And we in turn advocate, fight for energy rights. We're a nonpartisan policy organization. We know that solar energy is free and that government or monopoly utility companies should not restrict your access to it. And as we get more laws passed and more people have access to go solar, the cycle then continues, and hopefully in perpetuity, more folks go solar, more people join together, and then we can fight for even more rights. Just quick notes on what we'll cover today. First, we'll start off with how the solar co-op works. Again, we're talking about the Arlington and Northern Virginia solar co-op that were launched on April 1st. We'll talk about solar technology, batteries and EV chargers, and then the economics of solar. So how solar co-ops work. At its most basic, a solar co-op is a voluntary buying group that leverages discounts. It's a bulk buying group. We give you the best value on installation. Our job is really to give you the tools to make an informed decision. We give you support throughout the process, whether that's through information sessions now, connecting with various installers, putting out an RFP, connecting you with fellow solar enthusiasts. It's important to note that the group has a beginning and end and is a limited time. The prices that we will get for you as part of the solar co-op do not continue in perpetuity. They're just really a limited time opportunity. And we do have a co-op guide that I'll have folks put into the chat. And also very important, at this point in joining the solar co-op, there is never an obligation to go solar or to sign a contract with any installer. Eventually that'll come if you so choose between you and the installer. In terms of the solar co-op process, this is really a stakeholder-driven process. We encourage folks to participate. Learning is a big part of the process. Again, Janice was a great participant for the Middlesex co-op, and you all have the opportunity to participate as much or as little as you would like. We are in months 1 and 2 right now. Really, you are, number one, attend a free solar co-op info session. That's where we are. Signing up online. If you have not already signed up for the co-op, we encourage you to do so. Once you sign up for the co-op, we'll send you some emails to get you kickstarted. We'll also screen your roof for you and let you know if it's a good fit for solar. We also encourage you to help spread the word. Again, this is really a community, stakeholder driven, and so invite your neighbors, invite your friends to join the solar co-op. Usually we need to get about 20 or 30 folks together for the co-op really to get going. And then usually in about month 3, we will select the installer. And actually with this group, I think we've already gotten over 30 folks. We might be into the 40s by now. So we're actually going to select the installer in May. And we'll be sending out an email here in the coming weeks to everybody that's in the co-op, and you'll have an opportunity to participate in the selection committee. If that's something that you would like to do, you'll be able to review all the various bids that we get from solar installers, and help determine which solar installer is going to work with the co-op and its members. Now, it's not going to be, you won't be able to select the group solely based on your preferences. Really, you'll be tasked with selecting the installer that best fits the group. When you do sign up for the co-op, there's various preferences that you can select on, what's important to you, in terms of the installer, price, equipment, local company, warranties, and on down the list. Now, what we do background checks, we do due diligence, reference checks for all the installers, and make sure that it's all reputable companies that we're engaging with here. But again, ultimately, the selection committee made up of volunteers of you and your peers are the ones who select the installer. And then as we get farther on down the line, there'll be a deadline to join the co-op. As I mentioned, it is a limited time to join the co-op. Once we've had the installer selected, they will begin to reach out to the folks that join the co-op first. So those that are joining here in April will kind of be first in line in order to get a proposal from the installer, and you'll work directly with the installer on that. And they'll offer you the prices that are available just to co-op members. And then you will decide if you want to sign a contract and move forward. That'll usually take a couple months. So again, if we pick the installer in May, proposals and contracts will probably get us into the summer. And then the installation usually takes a couple months after that. So we would imagine the very first installations could be taking place by late summer, or certainly by early fall. So sometime around Labor Day might be, give or take, might be when some of the first installations take place. Important to note, and we'll get into this later in terms of the federal tax credits, you would have until December 31st to get your installation. So certainly if you're kind of in the first half of the solar co-op, you should have no problem getting the full federal tax credit. And again, I'll go over that more when we get to the economics. And then finally, once everybody's had their system installed, we'll throw a party, throw a happy hour, come celebrate and meet some of your solar neighbors. A couple other quick notes. When you are giving your proposal, you will generally have 30 days to sign the contract. So again, it's a limited time opportunity. So you want to make sure that you're ready to review your proposals. We're happy to help look at the proposal, make sure everything's looks good. We're also happy to help you with the proposal that you get outside of the co-op. Review it, compare, contrast, what have you. Really, we're here to be your advocate and your resource through every step of the process. All right, and that brings us to solar technology. I see there's a whole bunch of questions or comments in the chat. Again, I can't see it, so I don't know, Sakrit, if there's anything that we need to address now, or has everything been taken care of in the chat?
I mean, I've dropped a lot of resources on the chat, and I was going to answer Wayne's question, but yeah, he wants to know if there's any truth to those ads on social media where folks can go solar with no money out of their pockets. I think Aaron just dropped a resource addressing those ads, but it is misleading in a nutshell. Any of those ads that refer to free installs or what have you either encompass a PPA or some other form of solar insulation, but you will not be owning that system. There is some hidden language over there, and we would recommend you read that link or resource that Aaron just dropped in the chat. But yeah, besides that, no other question right now.
Yeah, thanks.
Right.
I would just add that oftentimes they're products that will give you like a loan product so that you might pay for a loan. But yeah, if it looks too good to be true, it typically is.
Thank you.
All right. Great. So now we'll dig into the solar technology. So how do solar panels work? First and foremost, we are talking about solar photovoltaic or PV. which can convert solar energy to electricity, to direct current or DC electricity. PV is the majority of today's solar market. There is also solar thermal technology, which is a popular residential technology for heating water, for pools and other things like that. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about solar PV. Real quick kind of background on a solar panel. Historically, they've been usually about 3 feet by 5 feet, although they're getting a little bigger. They can be about 4 by 6 feet now, weigh about 40 pounds. Important thing for you to note is that panels are measured in wattage. And so when you have a panel, it'll be referred to as how many watts does it generate. Silicon is the dominant technology. And you can see on the left that these panels are really built to protect the solar cells in the middle there to ensure that they have a long life. Solar panels are really hail resistant and can really withstand most of the weather that's thrown at us. Obviously, you know, hurricanes and other things coming off the coast can be a challenge for anything, but kind of standard weather that you're going to have in Northern Virginia and the capital area should be no problem for solar panels. Kind of a quick basic overview on some important terminology. Kilowatts, kW, so that's 1,000 watts, right? 1,000 watts equals 1 kilowatt. And like light bulbs, panels are measured in watts. Of course, it's a much bigger number. And kilowatts is power. It's really important to know that your system is measured in kilowatts. And so as an example down low, again, as I measure the panels are measured in watts. So let's say a 300 watt panel, but we have 12 panels. And so that would be 3,600 watts, also known as 3.6 kilowatts or 3.6 kW. And so when you get your proposal from the installer, it's going to be measured in kW. 3.6 kW would be a pretty small system. I have a 5.1 kW. Common for a co-op might be 8 to 10 kW, but certainly folks can get larger than that. And so a system size like a 10 kW system is going to produce more at any one time than a 5 kW system, but that assumes everything's operating at peak power in terms of it's the best sun you're going to get, and all the other conditions are at peak production. Now, electricity production is measured in kilowatt hours or kWh. And this is what you're billed in. So again, your system's measured in kW, but what you're billed in is kWh or kilowatt hours. And that's how much energy or how much electricity is used over a period of time. For your solar array, it's going to be how much is produced over a period of time. So again, your kWh, if you were to look at your bill from Dominion or your electricity provider, it's going to say how much kWh you've used in 1 month. That's how much electricity you've used in a month. And then your solar array will generate some amount of kWh at any one time. Again, it's important to note that your system's size in kW, not panels. So in this example up here, we have 12 panels at 300 watts for a 3.6 kW system, but we could just as easily have 400 watt panels, 9 of them. That also would be a 3.6 kW system. So again, it's not the number of panels you have, but really it's the wattage or the kilowatt, which is the important number to look at. After panels, you want to figure out how is this going to attach to my roof? And that's where a racking system comes in. Solar arrays in Virginia primarily are attached to a roof as seen here. This is an asphalt shingle roof, the most common roof type that we have in Virginia. Great roof for solar arrays. Some other really good roofs for solar arrays are a standing seam metal roof, as you see in the photo. Rubber membrane roofs are also really good. The one roof type that is a challenge for solar is slate. If you have a slate roof, some installers will not work on it at all. And those installers that do work on it usually have an upcharge because it's a much more complex and much more delicate installation. In terms of what's a good roof for solar, It's more of an art than a science, right? We're in the Northern Hemisphere, so you want to face the equator, as close to the equator as you can. Unless you've won the solar lottery, your roof is more than likely not, due facing south. So ideally, you want a roof that's generally facing south. West also works really good. East works pretty good. But you want to get solar generation, especially during those peak times of kind of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. In addition to your roof orientation, shading is an important thing to figure out. Are there trees that are blocking the sun from your roof? Again, especially during those peak hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You're going to want to make sure you have little or no shading on the orientation of the roof, the south facing roof, the west facing roof, what have you. Third, you want to make sure you have enough space to mount panels and get a large enough system size. And this is really usable space for solar panels. And so, chimneys and dormers and gables all complicate where panels can go. So you want to have, space available for panels, unobstructed space available for panels on your roof. Usually at a minimum, we want about 200 square feet of usable space for your solar array. And then finally, you want a newer, not a new, but a newer kind of undamaged roof. A new roof is great, but really you just don't want a roof that's going to need to be replaced in 5 years or so, because the labor costs with a solar installation, then if folks had to come back in 5 years and pull your panels off, store them for a few weeks or a month, and then put them back up, really, that costs a lot of money. And so we recommend having a minimum of 10 years of life remaining in your roof. If you have questions on that, or if you're not in a co-op area, you certainly can contact our solar help desk and they can help walk you through that. If you have a roof that's not good for solar, or if you have space in your yard or on your property that allows, a ground mounted system can be a great option. One of the benefits to a ground mounted system is you can choose the orientation and more efficiently orient it towards the sun. So you're not going to be able to change the direction your roof faces, but for a ground mounted system, you can change the orientation towards the sun, and that increases the productivity of the panels. There is a bit of a higher cost for a ground mount. Obviously, some labor costs and building of the mounting system costs a little bit more in labor and materials. Additionally, you need to trench, put underground your wires and run them to the nearest panel. And so just all of that additional labor and material costs will increase your ground mounted system, not by a tremendous amount, but a little bit. And usually you don't want to be more than 50 to 100 feet from the nearest meter for your ground mounted system. Otherwise, you can get more expensive and start to lose some electricity through the wires there. Finally, after your panels and after your racking system, inverter is a really important thing. Your inverters are really the brains of your solar array. And what they do is they invert or convert the DC energy, the direct current energy that your panels produce, to alternating current, or AC. And that's what your home uses it uses AC. So the inverter conditions the energy for use in your house. You can see here we have a few examples of inverters. A string inverter is generally used for ground mount or commercial systems. If you're getting a solar array on your rooftop, you're likely to get either a string inverter with a DC optimizer or a micro inverter. And again, these are the brains. They monitor the production. And the great thing about some of these inverters is they can tell if your production for one panel goes out. Often you'll be able to get an app on your phone. I think Janice was referencing that, where you can actually see the production for all your various panels. And if all of a sudden one of those panels was not producing, you'd be able to look at your phone and know that. And then you could call up the solar installer and have them come out and address that specific panel. The installers will make recommendations on which inverters are the best, and there'll be usually one or two inverters offered in the solar co-op pricing. And then also you have electrical panel, right? And so your solar array needs to connect to your home, and it's going to do that via an electrical panel. It's a pretty simple connection. Most homes do not need a panel upgrade before connecting with solar. Do want to let you know that probably one of the first things an installer is going to ask of you is a photo of your panel, because they're going to want to look in there and see, A, is your panel outdated? B, do you have room for another breaker? And all those kind of basic things. And so really usually a pretty simple thing, but just want to make you aware that your solar array does connect to your panel. So just a quick recap of some of our terminology here. You can see, number one, we have the solar array generates solar electricity. It flows into the inverter, which changes it from DC to AC, so it's conditioned for your home, which then flows into number three and powers, ideally powers things in your house. And if you're producing excess energy, then you will then send it through your meter and back onto the grid. And I will talk more about that here in our next slide, because that is what is known as net metering. So just to kind of dive deeper into this illustration, more or less between the grid, when you're connected to the grid and your solar system, you kind of constantly have electrons that are pushing from your solar array and from the grid, and they're pushing towards your meter and towards your panel simultaneously. Now your house the solar array has the right of first refusal for your house, and so anything, all electricity that's generated in your panels will get used up in your house first and foremost. If you have excess electricity, it'll then flow through your meter and onto the grid, and you will get a credit for that when that's happening, let's say during the day, middle of the afternoon on a great day like today, where it's not too hot, not too cold, but sunny. At least in Richmond, those are the conditions. And so I'm right now with my system, I'm pushing electricity onto the grid, receiving a credit. And then in the evening, when it's dark or on cloudy or rainy days, I'll be pulling excess electricity off the grid and using up some of those credits. And so that's generally what's referred to as net metering. It's really an important part of this balancing act. You gain a credit when you're sending excess electricity to the grid, and when you need electricity from the grid, you're using using those credits up. It's kind of like a rollover minutes from cell phones, if we remember that from 10, 20 years ago, what have you. It's also an important thing to note that you don't have to have a solar array that supplies 100% of the electricity for your home. You can have a solar array. Mine, as an example, powers usually about 2/3 of my electricity needs, and I'm able to supplement the rest of that from the grid. And just kind of a quick recap on net metering. The credits you're getting when you're putting solar electricity on the grid is equal credits to what you're paying when you pull it off the grid. So it's a 1-to-1 credit. You'll, again, as I mentioned, like on a day like today, you'll likely have a daily surplus. The spring and the fall are the best when you're not really using that HVAC system, because if you have electric heat and certainly your electric air conditioning, those are going to be some of your biggest, if not your biggest, energy users. And so we use those less in the spring and the fall. And so you'll have seasonal surpluses, and there might be other seasons where you're in a deficit. In terms of net metering, it's viewed on an annual billing cycle that takes into account those seasonal variations. And so that's why it's really important to look at a 12-month cycle there. And it's important to note that in addition to asking for your electrical panel, your solar installer is going to want to see your electricity bill, because it's going to have the past 12 months of electricity usage, and that's going to show them what your 12-month or your annual electricity consumption is at present. We do have a net metering guide, net energy metering guide, that'll ask folks to put in the chat. And just a quick, really easy math effect of net metering on your bill. This might be similar to my house or something. Let's say you use 300 kilowatt hours, your solar array produced 250 kilowatt hours, Does not matter if that 250 was consumed at my house or put onto the grid. It just matters what the total amount is. And then in essence, I pulled the remaining 50 kilowatt hours from the grid. And so I am only paying for those 50 kilowatt hours. Plus, a fixed connection charge, which in Dominion territory is $6.58 a month plus tax. If you do have a surplus from month to month, it will be carried over. It's also important to note that your annual billing cycle is based on your interconnection date. So it's not a January 1st date, but it's actually based on the date that you were given permission to operate officially by Dominion or your utility, which is usually a few weeks or a month after your system has been installed. So for me, my system was installed and my permission to operate came in November. So that's my interconnection date. Again, your systems will likely be installed August, September, October. And so it'll just be a little bit different. It doesn't really matter, but just want to point that out. And as I note here, when you save money on your electricity bill, right, in this example, you're only paying 50 kilowatt hours versus the 300 that you consumed. This is a really important factor in terms of when you are paying back your solar array, paying back the purchase. This money that you're saving every month is an important factor in determining how long it takes to pay back your system. So I know that was a whole lot. I do want to stop again and ask questions. And just a reminder, I can't see the chat. I see there's a bunch of chatter in there, but didn't know if there's any questions we needed to address.
You should be fine, Ben. We did have a couple of questions on microinverters and what have you, but Aaron and I took care of it. So you're good to go.
Great. Thanks so much. Well, next we'll move on to batteries briefly. And so this is an important thing to know is that when the power goes out, your solar system shuts down automatically. And I want to say this again because it's pretty counterintuitive. And I want to make sure that folks know it. So when the power goes out, when the grid goes down, your solar system will shut down automatically and you will not have power. And the reason that this happens is for safety reasons. As we mentioned, your solar array, when generating electricity, can feed electricity onto the grid. Well, if the grid is out and there's a line worker working on that grid and your house or your solar array is then sending electricity onto the grid, that could electrocute a line worker. So obviously we don't want to do that. And that's where the inverters come in. The inverters, as I mentioned, are kind of the brains behind your system, and they are in constant communication with the grid, and they're able to sense that the grid is down and they will automatically shut off. And then once the grid comes back online, your inverters will recognize that and the inverters will automatically turn your system back on and it'll start generating again. And so that means if you want to have power during a power outage, you're going to need batteries. And you can see here from this graph, the grid going down without major events is pretty much held steady for the past 8-9 years. However, since 2017, grid outages with major events has increased significantly. This is national, this is not Virginia, but just want to show folks that the grid outages are becoming more common over the recent years. And so if you want to get batteries, some of the reasons might be because you have frequent outages. Perhaps you have a critical load at your house that needs constant power, like a well pump or some type of medical equipment. You might want to just be prepared for disasters and emergencies. All great reasons to get batteries. Some disadvantage to batteries is they're certainly, to add a significant cost to your solar array. They're also more complex. There's more things that can go wrong with them. But they can be the right option for some folks. Certainly do not need to get batteries as part of this co-op, but all the installers will offer batteries as part of it as well. So it's certainly an option for you to consider. Also very important to note that if you do get batteries, it's unlikely you would be able to power your entire house or your entire load simply with batteries. So you will likely have to pick and choose what you would want to power should the power go out. And as I mentioned earlier, your HVAC units are the biggest energy hogs at most homes. And so as an example, you probably wouldn't be able to power your AC or your electric heat, but you might be able to keep your refrigerator on and some lights and your Wi-Fi and a few other things. And so we have a great battery guide that I'll have folks put into the chat. We've actually done a whole webinar on batteries that's on our website, where we go more into detail into batteries if that's something that you are interested in. And then I want to turn to EV chargers. As mentioned, you can install an EV charger as part of this co-op. Now, we really view solar energy as your local fuel source. Now, you can see here in this photo, this gentleman is, he's powering up his car at his house, right? He's not going to a gas station, not waiting in a long line, but just coming home at the end of every day and able to kind of plug in and fuel the car with clean solar energy produced right at home. And so if you pair a solar with an EV charger, this graph is, again, more national stuff. So these numbers are pretty rough, and obviously they can change, but they just provide kind of a high level estimate. On a gas powered car at $4 a gallon, again, numbers change all the time. That comes to about $1,800 a year in gas. Whereas with an EV that's powered by solar, it can be $415. Dominion says an EV costs $1 a day if you're going 40 miles or less. Some folks say EVs cost $1 a gallon. Any way you cut it, it's a significant savings over a gas car, gas-powered vehicle. And this is a great way to hedge against rising fuel costs as well, whether those are fuel costs or gasoline, or simply for the cost of electricity from the grid. If you are going to install an EV charger, it's what we offer with the co-op is a level 2 charger. That's going to need a 240 volt outlet at your house. Charging speed can be up to 6 times as fast as a standard 120 volt outlet. Usually you can charge between 10 and 30 miles an hour. And they come with a 3-year warranty, although certainly some speeds can be higher than that. And if you're thinking about getting an EV charger, a couple things that you should start thinking about, just some considerations you'll want to know so that you're ready. First and foremost, where are you able to put it? Do you have a garage like the person in this photo? Do you have an outdoor driveway? Do you have public access, right? Do you park on a street where you need to cross, city, county property, what have you? That also might lead into the type of install. Is it a wall mount? Is it a pedestal like you would have outdoors? Do you have electric service? Whether do you have an electric panel close to your garage? You'll need 30 to 50 amps, again, 240 volt. Ideally, you want to have network capability, Wi-Fi. That's really best practice these days. So you can monitor your system, your consumption. If you want to start to get into time of use rates and some other pilot projects that utilities are starting to offer, you're going to need to have network capability. The length of your cord, is it going to reach across your garage, reach across your yard, driveway, what have you? Again, as I mentioned, is it publicly accessible? Do you need to be concerned about that? And then just aesthetics, right? Do you like how it looks? Is it going to be bothersome to you? In terms of an EV charger cost, usually, like many things car related, they can get a lot more expensive should you choose. But generally, a charging unit itself is between $500 to $700. The installation can be $500 to $2,000, again, depending on how far you are from your panel, for a total cost of potentially $1,000 up to $2,700, $3,000. Again, that can be much higher if you want to choose to go that route. Important to know in terms of a federal tax credit for an EV charger, it did expire on December 31st, but there's hopes that it will be resurrected before taxes are due in 2023, right? So resurrected at some point this year. Unknown at this time, certainly encourage you to save receipts. Our folks and our friends in the EV industry are cautiously optimistic that this EV charger tax credit will return. And some frequently asked questions we get, warranties is a really common one. Panels generally have about 25 years of production warranty, and that means that they're going to maintain a solid efficiency for 25 years. They don't have any moving parts. There's not a lot that can fail or degrade, and that really goes to show how much the solar industry, the panel industry has progressed in the last several decades. Is that now it's really standard practice that the solar industry as a whole will stand behind their panels for 25 years or more. There's also usually a manufacturer defect, so that could be something that doesn't affect the production, but might be like a piece of metal hanging off the side of a panel or something else. Usually your defect warranty is between 10 and 25 years. Inverters, we usually have a 10 to 25 year warranty as well. Your installer will often give a 3 or 10 year or even more workmanship warranty, like a roof penetration or a conduit run. The good news is usually when something goes wrong on one of those, you're going to find out pretty quickly. Homeowners insurance, your solar array is going to become part of your home. So we certainly encourage you to contact your homeowners insurance provider before you get the system installed and let them know that you're going to be installing the system. Generally, most insurance companies either will not increase your premiums, or if they do increase your premiums, it's going to be a pretty low amount. If your insurance company is quoting you a significant increase, that is certainly not the industry standard, and we do encourage you to shop around. In terms of maintenance, these are really maintenance-free systems. You don't need to get on your roof and clear the snow. We get plenty of rain, so you can let the rain clean your panels. They are hail resistant, as I mentioned. You can get online monitoring, right? The app on your phone. Again, do not get up on your roof. We do not encourage you to do that. In terms of how long systems last, again, 25 years at a minimum. This is really a long-term investment, and they certainly go beyond 25 years. Will an HOA allow solar on your house? Well, here at Solar United Neighbors, again, as part of our fighting for energy rights, we've made it easier for folks in homeowners associations to go solar. We've helped pass a law at the General Assembly a couple of years ago, specifically makes it harder for a homeowners association to oppose unreasonable restrictions. And then in terms of if you're in a historic district, like maybe historic Alexandria or other parts in Northern Virginia, we encourage you to talk to your installer. They have a lot of experience working with the local historic districts, the municipalities, what have you, and should have a lot of experience in that. And with that, I will pause for any questions.
We answered most of the questions, Ben, and I think anyone who wants to follow up, they will, follow up via email. So we should be good for now.
Great, thanks, Grit. All right. Our final section here we have is solar economics. Important to note that costs have dropped 73% since 2010. You can see a tremendous drop since the 1970s. As I've mentioned, solar is a long-term investment. No moving parts, over 25-year lifespan. Also helps you hedge against rising utility rates. We usually find the utility rates, I should say, have generally in Virginia rise 2 to 3% per year. And actually in Dominion territory, they've increased 3% a year or 30% in the past decade. And usually it takes between 9 to 13 years to pay your system back if you pay cash. And then once you pay your system back, you're making free electricity. In breaking down the cost of solar, you can see that the system components has really come down in cost since 2010. That's mostly your panels and your inverters. The soft costs have have kind of stayed steady. And that's really where the solar co-ops get our value. We really help bring down the soft costs for installers. And that's what allows them to give us such great rates to co-op members. Now here's a sheet with a lot of numbers, and I don't want you to get lost in the numbers, but really I just want you to be able to understand your proposal and know kind of the different buckets of money. And so we're going to be looking at the cost of your system and then kind of how it pays you back. So net cost, net profit, net revenue. And these are turnkey systems. This is final pricing, right? That's the great thing about your solar system. You're not going to pay the installer this and then have to go to the city and pay for that and somewhere else to pay for that. It's one-stop shopping. Your installer will handle all their permitting and everything else. This is just a final price. So we're going to look at the right-hand column, the 8 kW system, and move there. So what we do is, the most basic way to look at a price is, so an 8 kW system, 8,000 watts. We've got a $2.75 a watt. The 4 kW would be its own calculation, similar stuff. So, but for the 8 kW system, 275 a watt times 8,000 gets us $22,000. So your system cost would be $22,000. You get a 26% federal tax credit, which I'll talk more about here in a minute. But that's 26% of 22,000 is 5,720. Important to note that you will pay the tax credit, obviously, when your taxes are due next spring. But that in terms brings the total cost to 16,280. It's important to know these are investment numbers, right? Like your system costs X amount of dollars, your tax credit is based on the total price. And so those are hard and fast numbers. As we get into the net profit, net revenue, these numbers are based more on production of your solar array. So they have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more opportunity to move. In terms of estimated year one electricity savings, again, as I was showed in the slide many slides ago about net metering, you're saving money every time you're not paying Dominion or your utility for the electricity that you're consuming because of your solar array. That's money being saved, and that helps pay back your system. So we have that at $1,100 in year one, and then in 10 years that would be a little over 11,700. And again, your utility rates will go up a bit. And so that's electricity savings in just 10 years. Your lifetime electricity savings, we get it over $32,000. And then there's something called a solar renewable energy credit, or an SREC. What an SREC is it is a voucher in essence that you can go trade on the market. And so it's a little complicated. We do have an SREC guide that I'll have folks drop in the chat. But what it is that Dominion or anyone else that needs to generate renewable energy and is not doing so on their own can pay you to, in essence, be a miniature power plant and generate renewable energy that they can then take credit for. And they will pay you money in order to take credit for that. We have that estimated at $200 a year. This is a price on the market. It fluctuates wildly. I think currently one SREC generates somewhere between $30 or $60. With an 8 kW system, you might generate 8 SRECs a year. So this is certainly a conservative. This would be probably a $25 SREC, so conservative estimate. Again, the price fluctuates just like anything on the market, but more or less as you generate renewable energy, that is valuable, and you can sell that credit, that renewable in the market, and that's yours to sell, and just like any other investment. And so that also helps you pay back your system. So you can see the total profit that you get, or the total revenue savings increases, is over $21,000, and that's over 25 years. So again, I know that's a lot of numbers. I want you to focus on the basics. You're going to get your price. You're going to have a federal tax credit, And then often the installer will give you these numbers as well, how much you're saving on electricity, and then the solar renewable energy credits, or the SRECs. Those are the most basic ways that you pay your system back. I know we're just about out of time here. So few more slides. Do want to note on the federal tax credit that it is decreasing right now, and for all of 2022, it is 26%. It does go down to 22% in 2023. And the tax credit is taken on the year the system is installed, not when the contract is signed, but when the installation actually happens. So as long as you get your system installed by December 31st, you were then able to take the 2022 tax credit. And it is important to note, if you don't have a tax liability significant enough to take the full credit, you can roll it over for up to 5 years. So you don't have to cover that liability in 1 year. Right now, the tax credit zeroes out in 2024. There have been various versions of Build Back Better and other legislation going on in Washington, D.C. that would continue the federal tax credit. Remains to be seen if any of those tax credits do pass. But again, right now for residential, it is 0 in 2024 moving forward. For commercial installations, it's 10% in 2024 and will be 10% into the future. In terms of financing, various financing options, and we do have a great financing guide that I'll ask folks to drop into the chat. It's certainly an option for you. The return on investment does take a bit longer. If you're looking to finance, there's lots of ways you can do it, right? You could get a home equity line of credit. You could refinance and pull some money out to include solar, various loans. The installer likely could offer access to specific solar loans from Clean Energy Credit Union and Community First Credit Union. Certainly, if you're going to finance, we do encourage you to shop around. Get a couple of estimates. Just go with the first one. And what do I do next? Again, we want to make sure that you join the solar co-op. Stay tuned for updates. We'll be having the RFPs here in just a few weeks. And so if you're interested in joining the installer, and then once that happens in May, be ready for consultation and eventually for installation. Really, we want you to be a smart consumer. Join the co-op, and please join our Facebook page, our listserv, and tell your family and friends about the co-op. And most importantly, thank you very much for joining today. Thanks to Janice and Aaron and Sakrit. If you have any questions for us in the future, you can certainly reach out to us at vateam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And I don't know if there's any questions in the chat that we need to take at this time.
Thank you so much, Ben. I think we have covered everything in the chat, but again, if you missed any of your questions or if you have any follow-ups, you can reach us on this email. And if you joined the session late, no worries. We will be sending out a recording to this info session tomorrow. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. And yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Take care.